Well, we are going to get started here. People are starting to log in. I can see. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for coming today. As you can see, it's July. I'm in my plaid. So we're ready to rock and roll. Happy Stampede Week, everybody. We're going to welcome today Carol Holland from JM Nutrition. She's a registered dietitian, and she's going to walk us through some really important stuff with nutrition and healthy aging. So I'm going to let Carol take it away. Thank you so much, Carol. If everyone wants to join me in a big welcome, it'll be silently because you can only hear me, but go ahead,
Thank
Carol.
you so much, everyone. I'm seeing a couple of hand emojis across the screen, so I know that someone's out there, so that's lovely. I'm just going to share my screen and get started. The first thing that I want to say is that this is not meant to replace any kind of medical advice you might get from anywhere else. So I'm giving you general stuff. If your doctor has told you something different, then that wins. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'm endeavoring to give you the best evidence-based information that I can, and hopefully it'll give you some food for thought. So I have been a registered dietitian for 16 years or so. And I specialize in a few different areas, but I also worked at a doctor's office for most of my career. So that means a little bit of all the things for people of all ages, including seniors and folks who are aging. So, what are we going to talk about today? Well, nutrients for healthy aging. So, what kinds of foods are we really going to be concerned about? Um, Considerations for lifestyle for healthy aging, preventing common health concerns, a few fun facts, trivia questions, etc. And then we should have some time at the end for Q&A. All right, so let's dive in. What are the nutrients that we are concerned about? Well, we're going to go through them one at a time, but we've got protein, vitamin D, calcium, they kind of go together, those two, fiber, omega-3 fatty acids, and antioxidants. So we're going to talk about what these things do for our body, as well as what foods you can find them in. So the first one is protein. Protein prevents loss of lean muscle mass. So one of the unfortunate parts of aging is that as we get older, even if we're fit and healthy and strong and eating great and working out, we lose muscle mass. So having a good intake of dietary protein can help prevent that and keep you strong as you get older. We know that protein is an essential building block for pretty much every body function, from digesting food to growing hair to having your heart beat. We know that a higher protein intake will help prevent injuries from falling. And we know that there are lots of different sources of protein, so it is relatively pretty easy to make sure you're getting enough. So there's lots of talk these days online about plant-based protein, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be considering animal proteins. So animal protein comes from pretty much any part of the animal or byproduct of the animal. So that's the meat itself, whether that's poultry, red meat, or fish, eggs, and dairy products. And then whey-based protein powder, that would be a protein supplement, but it is animal-based because it is made of milk. Plant-based protein sources would include tofu and edamame, which are both soybeans, nuts and seeds, tempeh, which is a fermented soy product, plant-based meat, which is like your veggie burgers, veggie dogs, etc., and plant-based protein powder. So for whatever reason, legumes is not on here. So we've got tofu and edamame, those are soybeans, but of course, chickpeas, black beans, kidney beans, lentils, those are all great sources of protein as well. So I'm curious to know from you guys if you want to unmute yourselves and shout out or put in
So
the chat box, or if you can, maybe you
that's
can't.
it. Yeah, they can't. So they can type in the chat box though, and then I'm here
Okay.
if anybody wants to type in,
Yeah,
and I am happy to read any comments that do come up, and I'm
perfect.
sure I'll have something too.
Perfect. Yeah. So what I'm curious about is how you guys get your protein. I mean, sure, it's summertime, we're having lots of steak on the barbecue. It's Stampede Week. I'm originally from Calgary, so I know all about Stampede Week. You've got barbecues going on. But what about legumes? What about tofu? Are you guys using those at all? Is there a favorite way that you like to get those in your diet?
That's a good one. So we did have Anna reached out and said edamame, shrimp, and peanut butter.
Nice. Very good.
For
Three of the
me,
top ones.
I like, yeah, peanut butter as well. I do a lot of peanut butter
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah.
Brian says nuts. He likes to have
Yeah.
nuts for protein, so that's a
Nice.
good one as well. And of course, I
Excellent.
do love my steak, and
Yeah, of
but
course.
I mean, who can afford that these days, right?
Right. Well, good thing there's lots of other options as well, for
Yes. Oh,
sure.
I just had some chickpeas
Oh, good.
a couple of I think about a week ago. So, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh, these are I should start incorporating these in more meals.
Yeah. Well, they're really easy. So we're going to touch on that later on as well.
Awesome.
I,
We
I
got
used
some
to be
more
called
too.
the, oh,
Eh, sh-
good. Love it. Read them
Yeah,
off. Yeah.
Anna again, she said summer salad rolls with a big smiley face, and Brian said
Yeah.
tofu tastes bland.
You know what? That is totally true. So here's the trick with tofu. This doesn't make it sound appetizing, but think about it like a sponge. When you buy tofu, it actually has water in the package, which means that the sponge of tofu is going to be saturated with water. That means it's not going to absorb anything else. But if you squeeze out the water before you cook it and then put your sauce or flavoring on, the tofu will absorb your flavor and then it is way less bland. So if you just look online how to drain tofu, Google will give you lots of instructions and that might help the tofu be a little bit more flavorful. I'm really glad you brought that up. That's great. So let's talk about falls for a second and bone health. Falls are the main cause of injury-related hospitalization in Canada. And it's more of a risk the older we get. And part of the risk is that you're going to hurt yourself, of course, but specifically with broken bones. So, how can we make sure that we're lowering our risk? The first thing is vitamin D and then calcium, we're going to talk about in just a second. So, vitamin D is what helps us absorb calcium, and therefore it's going to be part of what helps prevent osteoporosis. Vitamin D also supports the immune system, so prevents us from generally just getting sick and feeling down and out. And it can promote healthy aging in a variety of different ways. So, the thing about vitamin D is that it's not really in many foods. We get a little bit from eating fatty fish. We get a little bit from egg yolk. And then for dairy products in Canada, our milk is fortified with vitamin D. And some other foods are fortified as well, like orange juice and cereal. The problem is that in order to get enough vitamin D from egg yolks, for example, you'd have to eat like dozens and dozens of eggs every single day. And that isn't very practical. So this is one nutrient where I would say for sure you want to take a supplement, especially if you're over the age of 50. Now in Canada, the guideline is 600 international units of a day of vitamin D if you're under 70 and 800 if you're over 70. Most of us would just take 1,000 IUs a day, and that's perfectly fine. Your doctor might tell you if you need more, and in which case you're going to follow those directions. So we do think of vitamin D as the sunshine vitamin. So pop quiz, true or false, you can get just as much vitamin D from the sun, whether you're wearing sunscreen or not. What do you guys think? True or false?
Hmm. I know what I think. Maria says false right away. She was super quick to that. And I agree
Yeah.
with Maria, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah, and you guys are absolutely correct. Once you put sunscreen on your body, you're not making any vitamin D at all. But of course, we want to use sunscreen to prevent sunburn and skin cancer, so that makes that supplement even more important. So the nutrient that goes with vitamin D for our bone health is calcium. So calcium is what actually builds the matrix in our bone and our teeth as well. It's also an essential electrolyte for blood clotting and nerve function and for muscle contractions. So for example, your heart requires calcium for every heartbeat. The other thing about calcium is that we need more as we get older. So similar to vitamin D, the older you get, the more you need. So there are a couple different ways to think about calcium. I like to think about it as dairy products and other foods. So we can get trace amounts of calcium from things like kale, broccoli, chia seed, and then fortified foods. Fish with bones. So if you're eating canned salmon or sardines and the bones are in there, that's a great source as well. And there's trace amounts of calcium in things like oranges and almonds and so on. By far, our best absorbed source of calcium is dairy products. So whether that's milk or or yogurt, cheese, or a fortified beverage, almond milk, soy milk, etc., will have calcium added. Those are all going to be our best sources. So another pop quiz. What is the recommended daily allowance for calcium in Canada for those aged 71 years and older? There's a typo there. That should read 71. 1,000, 1,200, 1,500. Oh, I'm sorry, it's not a typo. It is 51. My sheet says the wrong number. I apologize. 1,000, 1,200, 1,500, or 2,000. What is the right amount of calcium for those over 50?
When in doubt, I always go with C, but I could be wrong.
Did we learn that in high school?
I did. I've carried it with me.
That's right on. The answer is actually
Oh,
1,200. Yeah,
oh,
so if you're younger than 50, it's 1,000. If you're breastfeeding or pregnant, it's 1,000. But once we hit that magic age of 51 and over, we're looking for 1,200 milligrams of calcium. So how do
wow.
we actually put that in perspective? Like, we don't eat calcium, we eat food. So what does that actually mean? So if we have 1 cup of milk or soy milk or something that's been fortified, we're getting about 300 milligrams of calcium. 1 ounce of cheese, which is 2 thumbs, so
Hmm.
about the size of a 9-volt battery, is about 200 milligrams of calcium. If you have 3/4 of a cup of plain yogurt, it's about 300 milligrams of calcium. So if you're using single serve cups that snap apart from each other, two of those single serves would give you about 300 milligrams of calcium. If it's flavored, it's only about 200 milligrams. So that's an important consideration. Cottage cheese, half a cup, has about 1,500 milligrams, and kefir, which is a fermented yogurt that's drinkable, has about a little bit less than milk, 250. So that kind of puts it in perspective. We're looking for 1,000 if you have a glass of milk, a piece of cheese, and a serving of yogurt every day. You're going to get pretty close. Then, when you factor in your fruits and vegetables and nuts with those trace amounts, that'll bring you up to that 1,000. So it doesn't sound too bad when we're talking about getting our calcium from food. It is better to get it from food if you can, rather than turning to a supplement in that case. The next nutrient we're worried about is fiber. We all know that it's good for our bowels, it regulates our digestion. It also prevents heart disease and controls blood pressure and diabetes as well. And there are two types, soluble versus insoluble. So the two types and the nuances between the two don't matter that much, except that soluble fiber is the kind that forms a gel when it gets wet. So if you think about oatmeal, if you leave it in your bowl too long, it gets a little gluey. That's soluble fiber at work. So that helps eliminate some waste products and extra substances from our body, and it prevents bowel issues, both constipation and diarrhea. Um, there's lots of good sources. Barley is the best. Oats are also very high. And avocado, believe it or not, we think of avocado as a fat source, but it's got about 4 times as much fiber as any other fruit. So if you happen to like avocado, that is great. That means you're going to get lots of soluble fiber in your diet. The other type of fiber, insoluble fiber, is more our roughage. So this is going to provide bulk for our bowel movements and and make things come more regularly. They can be fermented though. So if you have IBS, this type of fiber can sometimes cause some problems, some gassiness, bloating, etc. Sources are fruits and vegetables, of course. They're going to all have a little bit of both types of fiber, but whole grains and nuts. are primarily where we're getting our insoluble fiber from. So, um, we all need more fiber. Pro tip, nobody meets the recommended amount without coaching, and even then, it's hard. And I definitely am one of those people. As a dietitian, I know what I'm supposed to do, but it's still hard to get enough. So, what are we going to look at? Well, the balanced plate. This is Canada's food guide. If you guys haven't seen it since the school days when we all learned about the rainbow, this is actually what Canada's food guide looks like now. We divide our plates so that half of it is full of fruits and veggies, a quarter of our plate is whole grain, a quarter of our plate is protein. If you're getting fruit or veg plus a whole grain at every single meal of your day, that's going to go a long way toward getting enough fiber in your day. Which brings me to my next pop quiz. How much is enough? What are the actual recommendations for an adult for fiber every day? 10 to 15 grams, 32 to 45, 18 to 27, or 21 to 38? Lots of overlap there. What do you guys think is the right answer for how much fiber we're supposed to get?
Well, we know my answer.
Everyone else is probably thinking, oh, it's probably C.
Yeah, well, it wasn't C last time. Spoiler alert, everybody. So it's a 50-50 chance this time.
You know
Maria
what?
says D.
It's
You were right,
D.
Maria.
Yeah,
Good job.
yeah, it's not C. So the differences are based on sex and age. So for women, 25 grams a day or more. For men, 38 grams a day or more. But if you're over the age of 50, we all kind of know everything in our body slows down, and that includes bowel function. So sometimes you can't quite tolerate the full amount in the recommendation. So if you are feeling a little bit like your body's slowing down a bit, then 21 grams a day would be what we're looking for seniors.
Carol, can I just quickly interject to ask if we have
Yeah.
questions, should we wait to the end, or would you like people to post their questions and ask while you're
Um,
hosting?
yeah, waiting for the end is probably better.
Perfect.
Otherwise, I love questions and I'll take my time with the answers and then we will run out of time.
Perfect.
Yeah,
You
if
go
that's
ahead.
okay.
We have
Yeah.
till 11.
Yeah. Oh, we do? I thought we had
Yeah.
45 minutes only.
So we have till 11 o'clock because
Okay.
started a little bit late. So,
Okay.
yeah, so
Perfect.
we're going till 11.
That's great. Okay, good. All right. So the next nutrient of concern is omega-3 fatty acids. This is essential for healthy aging. Omega-3s are one of the things that are implicated in preventing cognitive decline or dementia. Um, it also supports the prevention of chronic disease, particularly heart disease. And I already said the part about the brain. So, where are omega-3 fatty acids found? Well, they're found in fish, but also in some other foods. Now, the thing to know about omega-3s is that there are three different kinds. So, we have ALA, which is the kind that's not in fish. And then we have two kinds that are in fish, DHA and EPA. So you can see that the two fish types are found in all different kinds of fish and seafood, whereas the ALA is found in vegetable foods. So walnuts, ground flax seeds, chia seeds, etc. Some beans, a little bit of overlap there with the oysters. The thing about omega-3 is that what we actually need is the fish type. So if we're eating ground flax and walnuts in order to get some omega-3s in our life, our body has to transfer that into DHA and EPA, and that conversion process is terrible. We only get about 5% in the end. So if you're eating omega-3 eggs, for example, where the chickens had a lot of ground flax in their feed, there's going to be lots of ALA in those eggs. But in order to get the same amount of omega-3 as what you'd get from one piece of fish, again, you have to eat like 5 dozen eggs every single day of your life. And that's not very practical. So if you can eat fish and you don't hate it, we would think that a couple times a week is enough. If you have high triglycerides, that's the thing that gets measured at the same time as your cholesterol, then even more than that, 3 or 4 times a week if your triglycerides are high. The only stipulation is not deep fried. If you're deep frying your fish, that to some extent will kind of cancel out the benefit of those omega-3s. So grilled fish or canned tuna or salmon or something like that is just fine. So on that note, every year around 76,000 Canadians are diagnosed with dementia, most of which are women. So those omega-3s become really important when we think about those numbers. All right, the next nutrient, antioxidants. So vitamin E, vitamin C, and zinc are the most common ones. They support our immune system, so that helps us fight off disease, particularly cancer, cardiovascular disease, and eye diseases. So vitamin E is found in nuts, seeds, avocado, vegetable oil, sweet potato, and leafy greens. Vitamin C, fruit, vegetables, and potatoes. Zinc, oysters, red meat, pumpkin seeds, cheese, lentils, shrimp, and dairy products. Pop quiz about zinc. Where do we find the most? Fortified cereal, so our bran flakes or Cheerios or whatever, lentils, beef, or oysters. What do you
I'm
guys think
going
is the best source?
I'm going oysters this time. I don't know
You're going
why.
oysters.
I'm
You're
not,
going
but if
D.
it's C, I'm going to be really upset.
I love it. Is anyone guessing in the chat box?
So Maria says A, Anna says D. She's going with
Okay.
me. Whoa.
Yeah. All right. Well, you guys are right. It's D.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Anna.
yeah. Right on. So it doesn't take very many oysters either. Only 2 to 3 oysters contains 300% of your daily zinc need. So they're very, very high. All right. So those are our nutrients that we're worried about. What about lifestyle? What about other things that can happen? Digestive health. So constipation is certainly a concern for all ages, but particularly as our digestion slows down, it can become more of a problem. Low appetite and low energy. So we're going to go through these one by one. We'll start with digestive health. So I just said risk of constipation in seniors does increase. We know that drinking a lot is a very important part of preventing constipation and getting adequate dietary fiber, and regular physical activity. So this isn't something we think about when we think about being constipated, but weight-bearing activities. So walking when your feet hit the ground, that can spur some movement in your digestive system and help keep things regular. So the easiest action step here is drink more. We know that men need at least 3 liters of fluid a day and women need over 2. Now, that doesn't mean all water. You are going to be getting fluid from milk, juice, tea, coffee, some of your foods, if you're eating soup, etc. The only thing that doesn't count is your alcohol in that total recommended amount. So we do want to choose high fiber foods as much as we can, of course, and get that activity. Those are sometimes a little bit harder to organize in our lives than drinking more. So when we're talking about fluid, like I said, alcohol doesn't count. We know that it's damaging to our body and it can actually cause diarrhea in some people. We know that caffeine can act as a diuretic. So if you're a person who drinks 1 or 2 cups of coffee a day, that's not what we're talking about. That amount of caffeine is fine. But if you're a 10 cup a day person, that can be a little bit too much. It can cause you to become dehydrated. And although sugary drinks, pop or iced tea, lemonade, do count toward our fiber total, they're also bringing sugar into our body, which can increase the risk of inflammation and chronic disease. So that's not actually something that we want to rely on for meeting our fluid needs. So if you want more information, there is a blog post on JM Nutrition's website about hydration. I think you guys are all going to get a copy of the slides after, so you could click through, or you can just visit the website if you're interested in getting a bit more info. So physical activity, another great way to prevent constipation. So we know, like I said, that weight-bearing activity improves motility. So mobility is how well you can walk around. Motility with a T is how fast things move through your digestive system. So physical activity moves gas through your gut, so you'll fart a bit less. It'll also give you stronger pelvic floor muscles, which is important for bladder control as you get older, but also important for balance and for stability and falls prevention. So if you're not already a regular exerciser, add some gentle movement. It does not have to be running a marathon or biking, the century bike ride of 100K. It just needs to be moving around a little bit more. So a 10 to 20-minute walk or some yoga is a great way to do it. Tai Chi is another really good way to be active in a gentle way. So this is really common. I can't emphasize enough. 80% of long-term care residents are constipated, more women than men, but really this is almost everybody. It affects a lot of us. One of the side effects of constipation, but also a side effect of aging, is reduced appetite. So generally, like I've said a couple times, our body just slows down. Everything about our body slows down. That includes our metabolism, which means that our appetite is going to be lower. We also might have a low appetite because of illness or chronic disease or some medications that we might be on. Decreased physical activity can decrease our appetite and changes in taste. So sometimes things taste different because of a side effect of medication, but sometimes just aging can cause our taste buds to change a little bit, and then food doesn't quite taste right, and that can make it really difficult to eat. So if you do have a reduced appetite, you're usually going to find more success if you have lots of snacks through the day. A great big meal when you don't feel like eating is really overwhelming and difficult to get through. But if you have three smaller meals and a couple snacks through the day, that allows you to get all your nutrients that you need without feeling like you're stuffing yourself or making yourself unwell. Now, the last one I'm going to talk about is low energy. So that might come because of decreased motivation. So you might just be a little bit low. Sometimes after retirement, people get a little bit bored, and that can cause decrease in motivation and low energy. It might be mobility limitation. Maybe you have knee pain or you've broken a hip or had a joint replacement. Sometimes that can cause low energy or just generally fatigue. The older we get, the more tired we get, and that is normal. So, what are we going to do about that if that happens? Well, we want to look for ways to prep meals that aren't exhausting. And there are lots of different ways to do that. But there are other barriers too, besides low energy, reduced mobility. You might have pain. So people with joint pain or a hip replacement that is aching a little bit, it's hard to stand in the kitchen and prep a meal. And eating alone can be a real barrier. Cooking for one is really hard. And then cost. So, how do we get around this stuff? Well, take shortcuts. If it's hard to chop vegetables, then buy a veggie tray that's pre-done, or buy bags of frozen vegetables, or in the produce section, you can buy stir-fry vegetables. So it's a bag of mixed veggies that is already cut up, ready for you to be cooked. Batch cook meals, so that means make a big batch, double or triple it, put some in the freezer so that you are planning for leftovers. That can help you save energy down the road. One pot meals are great, and the latest trend online is sheet pans. So, like a giant cookie sheet with a lip around it, you just put all your veggies and meat and everything and just roast it all together. It's very convenient. Planning for leftovers, and then meal delivery services. That might be Meals on Wheels, but there are lots of companies similar to Meals on Wheels that have a wide variety of food. You can choose low sodium, high fiber, low fiber, whatever your health concern is. And they bring frozen meals right to your door. So if you are having low energy or difficulty with meal prep, those are some shortcuts that can be really helpful. Again, there is a blog post on JM Nutrition's website around meal prepping tips and tricks. So we talked about meals. What about snacks? So there are a few key staples you can have on hand all the time that will make healthy snacking a little bit easier and more convenient. So fruit and vegetables for sure. Now those aren't pantry staples, they are perishable. But some last a long time. If you buy a bag of apples and keep them in the fridge, that can last several weeks. And similar, like zucchini or squash. I mean, you can have a squash in the cold room all winter long. So there are some that can certainly last. In terms of convenient snacks, I mean, squash isn't the most convenient, but carrots will last quite a long time. Celery will last a while in the kitchen. Um, nuts and seeds make a really great snack, very nutrient dense, lots of fiber, protein, and healthy fats in there. Yogurt and cheese both make a good snack. Now, I don't want you to be like, well, the dietitian said I could eat cheese, so you're going to go home and eat a block of brie every day. That's not necessarily going to be the best choice, but certainly a piece of cheese once in a while as a snack, it's a great protein source and nutrient dense. And then nutritional supplements like Ensure or Boost. You can buy those ready to go or in powder form and mix it yourself. Similarly, you can get protein drinks. So as long as you don't have kidney disease, there's nothing wrong with having a protein drink, and you can buy those ready to serve as well. And then granola bars. So these aren't the healthiest, especially if you're getting ones that are chocolate coated or have chocolate in them. They taste delicious, but they're pretty sugary. That said, a sugary granola bar is better than no snack at all if that's all you have on hand. So not a bad idea, and that's not perishable. You can keep one in your glove compartment for quite a while before it um, goes bad on you. So well, let's talk about malnutrition for just a second. 34% of Canadian seniors are on the verge of malnutrition. So, what does that mean? We think about malnutrition as being, like the little kids in Africa we see on TV where they're very, very thin. But in reality, malnutrition just means that you don't have enough nutrition in some sense. Malnutrition could just be iron deficiency. Um, but if you are struggling to put meals on the table because the shopping is difficult, or the prep is difficult, or you're depressed, or mobility is an issue, then malnutrition is a very real risk. So it's important that we focus on having regular meals and snacks and getting a variety of foods in so that we can prevent that as best we can. So I know you said we have until 11, but I am nearing the end of the slides. So we know that aging involves digestive health management, so preventing constipation. That's the biggest thing we mean by that. A balanced diet, so that plate method, fruit or veggie, a little bit of whole grain, a little bit of protein at every meal. Regular physical activity, no matter how gentle, moving your body is great. So that yoga, tai chi, stretching, gardening, those are all great. Going for a walk. And hydration is an important consideration. And the more we struggle with things like mobility and getting up and getting around the house, the less we're going to drink. If it's hard to walk over to the bathroom, if you have knee pain and you don't feel like going, we drink less to prevent needing the bathroom. And that's not usually going to make us feel better in the long run. So there's lots of action steps we can take within this. I mean, I know I've broken it down into kind of four key points. There's no wrong place to start. If you are thinking, oh yeah, Carol said it's supposed to be over, you know, 2 liters a day, like 2.7 liters a day of fluid for women, and I'm only getting a liter, that's a great place to start. Have one extra glass of water if you can. Just don't do it right before bed so it interrupts your sleep for bathroom visits. You might have been thinking, yeah, I think I'm eating okay, but maybe I should get a little bit more exercise. Maybe my constipation's kind of like rearing its head a little bit, and going for a walk is a strategy I've never tried before. So that would be a great place to start. anything that you can do is going to be a change for your health and an improvement for your health. So, with that, we do have, um, according to my 45-minute timeline, we have just under 10 minutes for questions.
Perfect. They're
I
coming in
will leave.
already.
Oh, good. I'll leave the QR code up here. If you feel like pointing your phone at the screen, you can leave a review for JM Nutrition Online. But I'm quite
Excellent.
happy to answer questions. So let me know what you
Excellent.
got.
Well, Louise
Yeah.
typed in the chat box. She said, I'm avoiding dairy due to high cholesterol. Do you have any tips to get enough calcium?
Yes, tip number one is you don't have to avoid dairy because of your cholesterol. So we know that saturated fat will raise cholesterol over time, but studies have shown us that if you have dairy products that are 2% or less, that's not enough saturated fat to really cause a problem. So I don't want you to necessarily always have cream or ice cream or, a whole block of cheese a day. That is too much saturated fat. But having milk in your diet and yogurt, if it's 2% or less, is not a heart health concern. So you can still use those lower fat dairy products for calcium intake for sure.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
She says thank you. And I do have a couple questions if people are typing just to fill
Sure.
the space. So I was writing my questions down. I wanted to ask why it's better to get your vitamins from food rather than supplements, and at what point would you take supplements instead of relying on food for your vitamins?
That's two great questions. So, why is it better? I don't really know why it works this way, but our body treats food differently than supplements. So, vitamin E is a great example. If you eat foods that are high in vitamin E, your body will take that vitamin, pack it away, store it where it needs to, and use it in the way that it needs to be used. Taking a vitamin E supplement, for some reason, it's just processed differently, and there's evidence to suggest that it's actually harmful.
Oh,
Not just
wow.
neutral or not helpful, but actually can be a negative effect in some cases. Generally speaking, the absorption is going to be better if it's from food versus a supplement. So even if it's not harmful, it's just going to be more helpful if it comes from food. Vitamin D is the only exception that I would say to that one. How do you know if you need a supplement? Well, if you have a deficiency that's been identified by blood work, so for example, you know that your vitamin D is low or your iron is low. If it's just a little bit low, like your iron, for example, then eating some high iron foods might help. But if it's very, very low, then supplement is always going to be better. And there are guidelines for different vitamins and minerals. If you're X% below the normal, then take this much supplement. If you're lower than that, then take that much supplement. So we have protocols for repletion if you're very deficient. But that would be the indicator. If you are low in something and you're already doing the food part and it just isn't raising your levels, then you would turn to a supplement for that particular nutrient.
I love that. Thank you so much, Carol.
Yeah.
Brian wrote in, he said, I'm 67 and I ran 10 kilometers on July 1st. Should I still take vitamin A in the summertime when I get out in the sun every day? I do take vitamin A for 6 months of the year.
Do you mean vitamin A or vitamin D? Would be
D, he
my
says.
question.
Yes, he said
D.
D.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, so if you are out in the sun without sunscreen in the summer months, you will be getting some vitamin D. Whether it's enough or not is going to depend on your blood work. So you can have your vitamin D tested. If you're low, despite that sun exposure in the summer, then you would take a supplement all year long. Otherwise, you can supplement in the winter, and that's probably enough. But it's impossible to know the difference, or to know if you're deficient without having blood work. So that would be my suggestion. In Ontario, you have to pay for a vitamin D test, which is where I live. So I don't know if that would be free at the lab in Alberta or not. Yeah,
Right. He says, thank you so much. And
you're
Anna typed
welcome.
in as well, said cast iron cooking and iron fish as well? Question mark.
Absolutely. So Your cast iron pans, as long as they're not enamel coated, if it's black cast iron, you will get a little bit of iron absorbed out of the pan itself. And that will be magnified if you have a vitamin C source. So, for example, if you're cooking a tomato sauce in your cast iron pan or a soup or stew that has a tomato base. The lucky iron fish is also great. So, for anyone who hasn't heard of it, it's a little iron thing, not very big. It looks like a fish, and I think you can get a chrysanthemum flower. It was developed by a PhD student to help rural residents of Cambodia or Vietnam, I'm not quite sure which country, who are commonly iron deficient. So you just take the iron fish, put it in boiling water or soup or stew, let it simmer in there, and iron comes out into the food. Then you just take the
Wow.
iron fish out and rinse it off. So you can order those online if you want. It's not going to be as strong an effect as if you were taking an iron supplement. But if your iron's just a little bit low, or if you have a history of deficiency that's been corrected, it's a great way to make sure that you're just topping up and staying on top of it. Yeah, great
That's
question.
incredible. Yeah, I've never heard of an ironfish before.
Yeah,
That's really cool.
yeah.
Uh,
Lucky ironfish, it's called.
Lucky
Yeah.
ironfish. And Brian just typed in to say excellent info. So,
Ah, well,
um,
that's good.
and I mean, I don't know if anyone's typing still, maybe questions, but I do have I got a couple more, but I don't want to take
Sure.
up all the time. But
Oh, that's
um,
okay.
I wondered why, and maybe this is silly, maybe some people know and I don't, but why do men need more fiber than women?
Men need more of everything than women.
Ah.
Men's bodies are generally bigger with a higher percentage of muscle, so it just takes more energy, more nutrients in general to fuel that body. Even a man, like if you had a man and a woman who are the same size, the same height, and the same weight, men's bodies just have more muscle density.
It totally makes sense when you say it. So that's why I said I think
Yeah,
this is a silly question because
yeah,
once you say it, I'm going to be like, of course.
yeah. No,
Um,
that's okay.
Brian says, should I use a stainless steel frying pan or Tefal pan?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't actually know for sure. I know those nonstick coatings get a bad rap, but I don't actually know if it has changed over the years, if the nonstick coating, say in the last 10 years, is better than what we used to have 30 years ago. Um, I personally err on the side of caution and use cast iron or stainless steel. Um, but I can't answer that question in any evidence-based way. I don't know the current state of what the coatings are made of. I'm sorry. That's a great question, but
He sends a smiley face anyway,
yeah.
so.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
I had another one. So, I wondered because I heard this years ago that it's better to buy frozen fruit and vegetables because it's picked and then frozen while it's fresh, and rather than if you go to the grocery store and buy what's on like the shelves, it's fresh, but it loses nutrients, the longer it takes. So, someone told me once to buy the frozen fruits and veg because it's actually fresher than what's on the shelves.
Yeah, I would say to some extent that is true. Um, the same would go for vegetables. When it's picked fresh, if it's local, like if you're getting it at a farmer's market and it was something that was picked 2 days ago, it's not an issue. But if it's something that was picked in Mexico or the southern United States and then it had to sit in a warehouse and then a truck and then another warehouse and then it sits in your fridge, it is going to leach a little bit of nutrient during that time. So frozen, it usually is flash frozen quite quickly after picking, so you would avoid that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
But that
awesome.
said, better to have fresh fruit that might have lost some nutrients in transport than no fruit at all.
Yeah, okay, exactly. So don't,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Brian again says, do you advocate for the 16 8-hour eating rule? I don't snack and I eat 2 meals a day.
So, great question. Lots of people talk about intermittent fasting lately. I do not advocate for it or against it. It really depends on the person. So, intermittent fasting and literally every other diet out there is a set of rules to follow that will make you eat less, typically. Sometimes, like the Mediterranean diet, it's a looser set of rules for a particular health condition. But intermittent fasting doesn't have evidence for supporting cardiovascular disease in particular, or diabetes in particular. What I've seen as a downside for an eating window like that is that for some people, only eating 2 meals a day can lead to food cravings and binge eating. And if that is the case, and hunger is not managed and binge eating is happening, that's not better. So for some folks, having regular meals and a longer eating window and only fasting during sleep is better. But if a person can have a shorter eating window and only eat 2 meals a day and feel fine, their appetite is controlled, their hunger is reasonable and predictable as opposed to being hungry constantly, energy levels are good, etc., then there's nothing wrong with it. So it really comes down to the individual person and what suits your brain chemistry the best. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Super individualized.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, Maria typed in, if I don't eat much fish and I have high cholesterol, should I take an omega-3 supplement?
Excellent question. The answer is I don't know. So for for some people, taking a fish oil supplement is a great way to get that nutrient in. However, studies are mixed. So evidence tells us that eating fish is definitely protective, but taking a fish oil supplement in some studies it's good, and in some studies it didn't help. So there's less of a guarantee that it's going to be actually preventative in terms of having a heart attack or stroke or something like that. Um, the only way that it would be a bad thing is if you are already on a blood thinner. So fish oil will thin your blood. If you're taking Coumadin or some other kind of blood thinner, then you want to be very careful about adding fish oil onto that. Make sure you talk to your doctor or pharmacist first. If you're not on a blood thinner, then it isn't harmful to take that fish oil. It just may or may not help. So, but if you hate fish, then it's a better option. We don't want to be tortured by the food that we eat either. That's usually not a better scenario. So,
I'm really glad Maria asked that question because I don't eat fish. I don't
yeah,
like the texture or the smell of it. So I
right.
take omega-3. And so I was like,
Yeah.
ooh, good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. Absolutely.
Brian typed in, he said, I lived in Turkey for 5 years and the Mediterranean diet was the best, he said.
Yes. It
Um,
is the best. It's my
I
favorite.
actually have a client in our adult day program that is on the Mediterranean diet. So as soon as you
Ah,
mentioned that, yeah, I just thought of her.
yeah.
But
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, it's an easy to follow one. It doesn't have a lot of rules. It doesn't have, strange foods that you have to eat that are unfamiliar. It
mm,
also doesn't restrict a whole food group, and we know it's protective for a whole bunch of health conditions. So,
yeah,
yeah, can't go
it's
wrong.
it's quite forgiving.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is.
I have another question. I only have one more. So if anybody else has any, feel free type them in. I know I want to let Carol get going here soon. I don't want to
Oh,
take
it's
up
good.
all her time. But so you talked about how protein can affect your kidneys. So I just wondered how.
Great question. So when protein is digested, its waste products are filtered out by the kidneys. So if your kidneys are working perfectly fine, then there's no issue. They're going to do their job, and whatever amount of protein we're eating, your kidneys will be able to handle it. But if you have kidney disease or some degree of kidney failure, eating too much protein can be really stressful on them. They might not be able to get out all of the waste products they're supposed to, and that can lead to a buildup in your system. Now, if you have kidney disease, you'll probably know it. That's one thing that family doctors would screen for pretty regularly when they're doing your annual blood work or what have you. And also, if you have kidney problems, there's usually symptoms that go along with it. So that's one of the things that's less likely to fly under the radar and be unnoticed.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's only really a problem if you do have kidney disease. Yeah,
Okay, and then just a second part to that question while we're talking about protein. We
yeah,
know you showed the plate and how important it is
yeah,
to have, the veggies and the breads and stuff. I wondered, so I hear a lot about these people on this carnivore diet, and I just wondered kind of where you
yeah.
stand on that.
Yeah. So again, diets work in different ways for different people. So there are some folks who will thrive on it. Um, the downsides of eating an excess of protein are that if you're relying on red meat to get that protein, then often your cholesterol can go up a little bit. Um, the other thing to consider is how much protein we really need. So there's a lot of chatter online about needing lots and lots and lots, like 150, 200 grams of protein a day. In reality, our body only needs about 60 grams a day in order to get enough protein building blocks to do their job. For someone who's trying to manage weight or control their appetite, maybe closer to 80, maybe even 100 grams a day might work better. To put that into context, for example, an average chicken breast is going to have between 25 and 30 grams of protein in it. One egg has seven. So if you have a three-egg omelet, you're getting around 20 grams of protein. Um, so if you have a protein food at breakfast and lunch and supper, and maybe one of your snacks, you're getting plenty. There's no need for the incredibly high amounts that some folks say is better. Beyond that, it's an individual thing again for that appetite piece.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have another question here. It asks, is there any benefit to taking a daily multivitamin?
There is if you don't eat well. So if you have a very low appetite and can't really get your nutrients, or if you're a very selective eater, some people can't eat any vegetables because they just can't handle the texture or the taste. In those cases, yeah, a multivitamin will kind of cover your bases and make sure you're getting all of the trace vitamins and minerals that you need. On the other hand, if you are a person who eats 3 meals a day and you have a variety of foods from all your food groups in the rotation most days, then it's probably not necessary.
Okay. And Brian, again, he said, I take vitamin B compound, vitamin C, 500 milligrams, vitamin D, and Centrum for 50 plus daily. I have a 24% body fat. Do I need any other supplement? I eat very well also.
You probably don't need any other supplement, but bodies are weird. So the only way to know for sure is to have blood work done. Your doctor can check for your blood levels of the most common vitamins and minerals, and that would be the way to know. Otherwise, if you're a good eater with balanced meals and you're taking a multi plus those extra few that you mentioned, that covers most of the bases that we need for an average aging body. So sounds like you're on the right track.
Excellent. Yes. Okay. Well, anybody else? He says, thank you. And a big smiley
Yeah.
face.
Yeah, you guys are so welcome. You're asking excellent questions. I love it.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I was like, that's why I interrupted earlier. I thought if we have questions, should we ask now? But you know
Yeah,
what? It's easy to come up with great questions. I think when the presentation is as great as it is and
thank
as
you.
knowledgeable as it is. So it leads us, I think, all to kind of think of these questions and then jot them down. So I think this was a wonderful presentation. And I just want to thank you
Excellent.
so much, Carol. We really appreciate your time. And everybody, I know you're going to join me in big claps for Carol.
Yay.
And if anybody didn't screen snap that shot on the for the QR code, I've got it. Reach out to me. I can make sure you guys are going to be seeing this up on our YouTube page. So if you happen to miss it, we're going to have this edited and all my silly comments kind of edited out and posted up so everybody can follow up and watch us at a later date. And as well, if there's any information that you guys want, I can ask Carol for or reach out to me.
Absolutely.
And yeah, Carol, thank you again so much for all your time today. And we hope we get you back again. This was really wonderful.
Thank you so much. It's absolutely been my pleasure. Have a great
Oh,
day. Happy
you too.
Stampede Week.
Thank you, Carol.
All
Bye-bye.
right.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.